specific to software. And there's actually a fair amount of stuff that is specific to software. Issues involving intellectual property, issues having to do with licensing schemes and its interaction with business model, et cetera. There's unique features to software that mark out software entrepreneurship as kind of different than entrepreneurship in just any old area. So, you can go to the Edwards School of Business and get an introduction to entrepreneurship more generally. And I'd encourage people who are interested to do so. But the fact is that there's no element right now in our program here which specifically talks about entrepreneurship in software other than this class. I would also try to use lectures in this area to try to provide guidance, some measure of guidance as to warnings and cautions and guidelines if you were thinking about any sort of commercial involvement in your work other than just being an employee, what you might look for there. For those interested in software entrepreneurship more generally, I'd probably also talk some about the legal, the financial side of it, issues to do with particularly business models and licensing, and some about sort of the stages companies go through. So again, it's 0, 1, or 2 lectures realistically, and it would draw on my background. I founded several companies. Some of them have gone multinational. Some of them have secured. Several of them have secured VC financing, and many of them are still around. So, what would people be interested in? How many people would be interested in having some entrepreneurship featured within this class? Okay, that's helpful. How many people would like would prefer to have just a high level kind of introduction, one lecture without going very, very deep with it, but sort of high level, most important things to think about? As opposed to say 2 lectures which go a bit deeper. How about 2 lectures in that area? Okay. Well, it seems to me quite clear visually. The eyes have it. So I will plan on that, and I've worked a little bit on the slides, updating them based on some recent sort of thinking about how to best communicate some of the material, things you need to know. So I'll plan on rolling that out. Now, along these lines, I want to mention something else as well, though. This is something which I actually regret not providing a few paragraphs on this explicitly in the syllabus or talking about it in the very first day of class. But because it's come up with one of the projects explicitly, and because it may be in the background for others of the project, I feel that it's my obligation to talk a little bit about this, even though the topic, if I had my druthers, I'd fold it into a discussion on sort of commercial side and entrepreneurship as a module. But that's still some time away, and we have important things to cover in test design before that. But I want to talk a little bit about your projects and make sure that you're clear on your rights when it comes to your projects. Okay, you folks are working hard. ID2 is encouraging, and we'll be getting you some feedback on that tonight in more detail on each of your projects. But you folks have been working hard on a variety of projects in a way that brings value to the projects. It's evident that there are still some issues with some people not fully pulling their weight and so on. But by and large, you're making good progress, and you are in the process creating a lot of value when it comes to thinking through the issues, characterizing how these software systems should work at a concrete level, putting into place code for them, putting into place verification mechanisms that check that the implementation is correct, etc. These are not small matters. They're taking a lot of your time, a lot of your efforts. And I want to contrast that to a view which says, well, you folks are lucky to be working on really interesting ideas which are informed and shaping what you're doing. The fact is, when you're dealing with a software project, ladies and gentlemen, the idea is cheap often, or it's not the foremost carrier of value. What really delivers value is actually realizing it, actually making it happen, actually bringing it into being. And you will find outside of the university no shortage of people who have what they consider really neat ideas for fill in the blank. Apps, services, companies, whatever, right? But if you engage with those people, as I'll talk about in this later module of the course, you need to realize that that you are bringing a key element that's of equal value, maybe greater value, ultimately, to the table and your work. This is not a matter where you should be viewed as lucky to work on this. You may say it's a really neat project. I'm glad I'm working on it. But the fact is that I don't want you to underplay what you're bringing to the table and what you're contributing. And so when it comes to issues of ownership of the sort of projects you're working on, I want to be very clear that the teams in here, it is clear like night and day to me, and frankly to the university as well, because I talk with the powers that be about this at the university, the official university policy. At our university, we are fortunate to have a policy in place that even though these may be projects taking place in a course, taught in computer science with oversight from a professor, etc., these are the projects of the people involved in delivering them. And they're not, and mark my words, they are not my projects. They are not projects solely of the stakeholder. It's not my project in my capacity as teacher of the course. For the stakeholders involved, they are not the stakeholders' owned projects. They are projects that the stakeholder, in as much as they've shaped what it should look like, what the features are, what would be valuable, what would bring value to the table, they have a share in it. But you folks have an overwhelming share as well. From the university's perspective, as I understand it, as it's been presented to me by those from what used to be called the ILO, Industrial Liaison Office, what I believe is now called Innovation Enterprise. There is a class of people out in the world, believe it or not, who just love changing names of things and feel it really brings value to change the name. In this case, I happen to think the name change is probably a good one, but just be aware that it's one of the weird facts of life. People out there who really get up on naming things. Innovation and Enterprise representatives have told me also that basically you own the projects together with the stakeholders who shape them. Okay? And what that means is collectively you own most of the project. I mean, they're one person in a group, and the group is overwhelmingly you folks. Okay, so I want to communicate this to you because misunderstandings can arise on the part of students, on the part of stakeholders, and I want you to be very clear about the university's policy and our course's policy about this. Okay. You should not be in a position where if you feel a stakeholder is coming with an expectation that you're delivering a product or project for them and that they will then take it over and steer it in the future in whatever way they please and that you don't have a say in that. If you get that impression, you need to bring it to my attention and and we need to work with the stakeholder in a way that is not directly sort of aggressive or obnoxious, but in a way that is firm, to make it clear that you folks are large co-owners of anything that comes out of this class. And as such, you need to be consulted. You need to be party to decisions. You need to have the option to shape the future of these things. That is your contribution to it, because you've created the value. Okay, you are creating the value. And when it comes to commercial side use of it, what you folks don't know is that before this class got started, I got approached by a whole swack of companies about projects where you'd work for. I had companies writing me saying, we need students to work on this project we're working on. You know, we need 2 students to work on this, or we need them to build this product for us, which we will then sell, or what have you. And there may be a time where there's a role for that in 371 for students, all of whom opt into a project. They all know it's commercial and they opt into it and they want to participate, and the terms and conditions are very clear. But right now, they are not. We're working towards them. Myself, my colleague Christine Hillis, who some of you have met, and others, we're working towards completely tying down what industry involvement looks like, making it very clear to the industry what this rights of students are, et cetera. We're not yet at that point. So I actually stipulated when starting towards these projects that we are not this year accepting commercial projects. That is, projects for commercial gain, for-profit projects. Okay. I'm just not ready for it yet. Now, it's come to my attention that there are, for at least one of the projects, commercial actors who have expressed interest. And we need to take that interest as a point. It's a vote of confidence. It's a nice thing in that regard. Look, I founded several companies. I understand the value brought by entrepreneurship. I understand the excitement that can come with seeing an idea realized in a scalable way that's sustainable financially and that earns good income for people. I'm not ideologically opposed, but we need to handle students very carefully, because there is unfortunately a history of people being undervaluing their contributions that they've made to the project, even being taken advantage of in some cases. And I know that some of you have run afoul of that with some small companies, even here in town. And I am shocked, disappointed, and moved to action by that. I think that's really problematic. There is a way to deal with commercial entities in ways that are upfront and where the sides of the different parties get represented, but it is not to do it informally. It's not to fall into that relationship. It's not to make assumptions. It's to alert us, who basically will be your advocates, to try to help straighten up the conditions. And honestly, I would think about talking with the ILO or what have you, the folks, carefully chosen, perhaps a lawyer over there or what have you, that can help you know your rights. But this is something that's part of my duty with this class. I tried to avoid it by choosing projects which did not feature any obvious involvement, but it seems that the promise of some of the projects that brought forward possible involvement and brought it forward early, and somehow that had not been brought to my attention. And I don't think it was a deliberate thing. I think it just got missed. So it's my job to work with you to help protect you from some of these things, and frankly, to help give you the options if you do want involvement, if you don't, if people want to opt out, if people want to opt in. I want to make sure you folks have the right to do that, okay? And that means starting with an understanding that you folks are the co-owners of anything that comes out of this class. And in fact, numerically, the big owners of it, by big, I don't mean you have a component of it that's qualitatively different. But what I mean is you're many voices to say one voice of a stakeholder with this, and you should recognize that's important. Okay. So if any of the other groups, I'm aware of one group and I'm trying to work towards handling it now aggressively, but if any of the other groups are in a situation where you're feeling torn, or you're feeling exposed, or you're feeling uncertain, or you're feeling at risk, please talk with me and talk with Christine Hillis, who's one of the most knowledgeable people I know on campus about how to handle issues like this. And let's work together to make any ideas for further extensions of the projects after the semester ones that will be for your benefit and not for your risk. Okay, so just think about that. I want you to know what your rights are, and I want you to know that you're bringing a lot to the table, and I value that. And I know there's other people externally who value that. Just make sure that you get proper credit for it. Okay, so those are some comments. I'll come back to this with the entrepreneurship lecture, where I'll talk about some of the ways you can protect yourself against these sort of things, with agreements and what you look for in a contract. I remember when I was a young man, and the earth was still cooling. I was in one of my first entrepreneurial encounters, and we had a client, a fairly informal thing, but someone who wanted to found a company with us, and I was all excited, and it was great. Seemed like a nice enough guy. I had one of my friends who came back long distance to join the company and so on, and we were promised. We had it in writing. A pretty decent sum of money, between 10 and 20,000 US at the time, to develop some software. So we started developing it, and long story short, the main sort of business side partner decided, for life reasons, he wasn't going to continue be able to leave his full-time job and come on to the company. And we said, well, given that, we're not inclined to continue on this too, we'll take delivery of, we'll provide our products, you pay us, and we'll go our separate ways, and we're fine. You've gotten value, we've gotten value, you can shop the product around to others. And we said this with the confidence we had something in writing. And it turns out that he said, no, I'm not going to pay you. He said, there's no company to pay you, so you're not going to be paid. There's no company that exists anymore, so I'm not, you're not owed anything. So we consulted legal advice on this, and we found out that the contract, well, it seemed to our eyes to be, a statement of guarantee. It was non-actionable. We actually, we couldn't sue. We couldn't actually take it to court. We couldn't make a strong case illegally because it lacked the requisite clauses in it. It lacked a clear statement saying precisely who pays who, under what conditions, in a way that was tight enough for a court to respect. So I lost, many, many months of my life, much in the way of financial remuneration during that time, etc., being jerked around for this. And this friend of mine who would come back long distances was even in worse straits, and was in debt because it was horrible. It was horrible. You contrast that with other companies which have done great that I've been involved in. There's a real difference, and there's certain things you can do that will point toward one of those outcomes rather than the other. So we'll talk about that in entrepreneurship, okay? But you folks have our backing. If you're concerned, don't hesitate to come to us, because we're here to protect you, okay? I'm here to protect you and here to watch out for your rights as well.